All right, guys. What is going on? We are live. Welcome back to the Unconventional Mindset. My name's Odum, and every Monday through Friday, we get together, we stream, and we figure out and we work on building ourselves a company that's going to generate us $1 million in revenue every single year. And today, what I figured we do, seeing as it's our 300th episode, although I don't have anything really special planned, but 300 episodes. Thank you for sticking around for so long. I figured what we do, we talked about this before, but I made a decision to take our creative agency that we have, which is Pixel Media, and we're going to do a pivot, and then we're going to focus on doing work, creative work for academic institutions, research groups, and individual researchers, and maybe even companies that are developing new technologies based on research. So they're kind of doing the R&D, but they're just getting out, and they need to learn how to get their message across and of what it is that they're doing and what it is that they're working on. So yeah, I figured that's what we'll do. And what we can work on today, I guess, is where am I here? I want to share my screen. Just maybe starting very quick by putting together some of the fundamentals to make sure that we have all of, so like we know who our market is and who we want to message to, so that can help us craft our content, which we're going to need to start writing for updating our website and our webpage. And maybe what we can do is we can, just give me a second here. And yeah, let's have some client stuff on there we don't want to show. Let's go to Pixel. Right. Okay. So just as a recap, here's our website right now. And we're going to, the reason why we want to make this switch is because it's very generic. We did some updates to some text here, but it's really generic in terms of like, who am I speaking to? Like, what problem is it that I'm solving? And if you're going to come on here, how are you going to know? I guess if you know that you want a website, even that, it's not even very clear, right? We craft digital experiences. I think we could just work on getting clarity. And again, because we don't have a specific audience in mind, it's like, hey, anybody that needs a website, anybody that needs, a digital experience or whatever, right? That could be anybody. But we want to be able to craft a message and really speak to a person's problem. So somebody that is a researcher that just got some money and that they know they have a research project, they know that they're going to need to be able to communicate that project to, number one, their stakeholders, and number two, like the public, and also maybe even internally. So we need to make sure that when they hit our page, that's going to be very clear and prominent. So with all that being said, let's go to our Word document here. And we were working on this, I think, even just a couple weeks ago when we were deciding on, or we kind of thinking about if we should kind of pivot to a different market. So let's try to think about, or let's go over and review what we wrote down. So yeah, there's a lack of a target audience. There's a limit to how much I can command per client. So we're suggesting on focusing on scientific communication, communicate, the what, the how, the why of the science. What is it that we're doing? What is it that we got funded to do? How are we going to do it? Why is this important? What is the benefit to society? How is this going to make other people's lives better? Why is it that you should continue to fund the research and the work that I'm doing? And just explaining how it's important. So the real thing is, we need to help people disseminate their work. So this is really good. Lots of different ways that we can do that. So this kind of gets into a little bit more of the services that we can offer, right? So there's data management. Obviously, science comes with a whole lot of collecting data, right? How do you manage that data is one thing. That's a whole other can of worms we can talk into. And I think Data Shift will fall in line with that pretty good, I think. So then we have obviously just websites if you need websites, digital media, whether that's, I could just put it in here, video, audio, social media, communications, whether you need to make even just content for your content for a website, content for press releases, all kinds of different things. Public relations, how do you engage with the public, and whether that's, you know, events and whatever. Oh, that's another thing too, kind of event management could be a thing as well too. Public relations, and then government funding, and then with agencies. And I guess public relations, what is government funding agencies? I think what this means is, what I was alluding to was probably how to make sure that their message is aligning with governments and funding agencies so that they can go ahead and put their proposals through. So I don't know if my thing was more like proposal writing. Right. So, and here's an outcome, I think here is, helping them increase their chances of getting funding. So that's pretty important. If we can have that, that's a huge marketing effort. So I think if you have something in line, if we wrote down as a, either an ad or just a landing page is, we help, increase your chances of getting funding by 69% by 75%, whatever the case may be, right? What is it that I'm thinking here? Or people that come to us have, are 80% more likely to, receive like additional funding based on, this is really bad, but based on how their work is articulated. That's really bad, but all right. So two sides of the equation: before a group gets funding and after they get funding. So which would be most beneficial aligned with my current skills. So yeah, that's likely going to be the group that we're going to focus on, are people that have funding and are then now reaching out to, ramp up whatever it is that they need to do with their, with their funding, like what outcomes they said they were going to get after they get funding, right? So they're going to need to like put together their team or what have you. So it's really interesting if we can think about helping them write specific funding or proposals, because then you could be in on it on the ground level and say like, okay, well, we want to do this, this, and this. Like we want to create the specific software that's going to help us manage the data, and we're going to need to be able to make this website, and we want to create these videos and whatever the case may be to help with public relations, whatever the case may be. And you can say like, well, that's going to cost, $150,000. So make sure to write that in as part of the proposal. So that's something that could be really, really interesting, but not quite there at my skill set. I probably have to bring some other people on to help me out with that, which would be really, really cool. Right. So that's pretty much it. So what I want to do now is, maybe what we can do is we can just spend a little bit of time articulating who our target audience is. And we also want to kind of have our statement of why. So I'm just going to put that there. Let's say, so target audience, and then like the problem we are solving. So maybe let's just bullet point this. Target audience. So, or I'll just say like a potential target audience. So, research group, that just, maybe we'll get a little specific, just received funding for a large project. And basically, when I say large project, we're talking about 1 million plus. And that's the other thing too that I think is really important to note. I'm just going to full screen this because I think this is really important. When we were looking at Pixel Media, when I first started, this company, back a year and a half ago, the idea was that I would help you make and manage your website and your online presence and help you grow as your business would grow. So the idea was I would be targeting people that were just getting started into business. The problem with that is those people have no money, right? They are broke and they're just trying to bootstrap, whatever the case may be. There's not a lot of money that can be had there. And those people, new entrepreneurs, are, for the most part, they're very hesitant to spend money, right? Especially if they can't see the return on their investment or the value that they're going to get from it, which is totally understandable. But now, reaching out to this specific market, it's hugely contracting the amount of people that I could potentially have as clients. Like, I'm not just building websites for anybody or for everyone. I'm building it specifically for research groups that I know have just received funding for a whole shit ton of money. And in Canada, the amount of money that gets handed out for research projects is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, if not, I don't know if I'd say billions of dollars across the whole industry, but it's definitely hundreds of millions of dollars. It's probably billions, because I know there's even a one grant or one project, granted it's a 7-year project, but it's well in the 9 figures, like $150 million, right? So getting a small piece of that, getting 0.1% of $150 million is what, 1.5 million? Or 1% would be, 1% of 100 million would be 1 million. Yeah, so you get 1% of that, it's like 1.5 million. Not that I want 1%, but even just a fraction of that percent, right? Half of a percent, it's $500,000 or $750,000. A lot of money to be had. So nailing down this audience is so much more beneficial for the company. And I think it's so much more beneficial for me to get to the point where I can build an agency that's going to get to that 7 figures, especially when we don't have to go out and look for those clients that are like, I want a website, $500, even $5,000, small potatoes, I guess you can say, right? So that's why I think making this pivot is going to be a whole lot more beneficial. And also, I've been in the academic field since a long time. So it's kind of my bread and butter. So at least I understand the industry as well too. So it's might as well stick with what you know, right? Okay, so potential target audience. And let's just bold this up a little bit. So research groups, or just say a research group that I'll just say with funding, research group with funding over $1 million, something like that. We'll just leave it pretty simple there. Researcher I'll say research group looking to create an online presence. So there could be lots of research groups and researchers that they might not be tied down to a specific project in terms of funding, but there could be a lot of professors. If you look at a professor at a university, they have their own, usually they get their own lab or whatever the case may be. And, we got a comment here. Eisenhower. Let me comment. No, don't do that. Do this. Eisenhower, welcome to the stream. Don't stop talking, bro. I'm learning a lot from you. Appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. Happy to have conversations here as as I work out through my own things as well too. Okay, what was I saying? Right. So specific researchers. So you have like a professor who has their research lab or whatever, especially if they just knew they could maybe get a few grants or whatever, a couple $1,000,000, whatever. And then they'll get grad students. So the grad students are kind of the drivers that are actually doing the work and doing a lot of the research. And obviously, a lot of the times, those grad students are going to be doing work that is all based around the area of field of expertise of the actual professor. And a lot of these professors, either they'll have a website with specific universities, which is just like a simple landing page, but they'll often have a group name or whatever for the type of research that they're doing. Like if they're really big into salmon fishing, it would be like, hey, the Halifax Salmon Group, whatever. That's a pretty bad example. And this is across like all science, right? Biology, chemistry, whatever the case may be. They all have their own little research groups, and they all historically are really bad at being able to make like even a website and be able to explain what it is that they do to the public, which is a really big thing. Kevin, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? Yeah. So the problem with those specific type of groups, these researchers or groups that, they might want a website or what have you. Generally speaking, if they're not tied into a specific research project, they might not have the funding to be able to create like a large project. But again, if these are one of those things where they're like, hey, I'm a researcher, I want to get a website, and maybe that's a good foot in the door so that when they do get that big pot of funding, and then they're going to need a website that's dedicated for that research project. And they have a whole bunch of different stakeholders. They got data they need to manage because data is going to start flowing in. How are they going to manage that data? They got to set up all this kind of stuff, hire different staff. And that's where we can kind of come in. So we can kind of build those relationships. So I'll say like for these, we might be looking at, this would be on the lowest end of kind of offerings I think that we would have for this group is like a 5 to 10K, like website project, right? It's like, hey, I just want a website or whatever. And even ideas too. Like I was even just contacted, this was another one last year. It was just like, hey, well, there's a couple. I've done 2 of them in the past, like not too long ago. Just a simple landing page for a conference, like a research conference. Like, hey, we have our conference that shows up every year or whatever. We want a kind of dedicated page. So those are things to look at because oftentimes these researchers will have their conferences. They'll have all kinds of abstracts and papers, a bunch of people presenting and posters and all that kind of stuff. So they get all this material, but then they don't post it anymore, and the stuff just kind of dies. So being able to actually, this is a really good kind of point of helping people keep the information that they have on a conference alive. So that's this whole conference management. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother game changer in terms of the possibilities for getting money for that. If you could manage like scientific conferences, there's a shit ton of money to be had in that as well. Oh man. These guys, they spend 6 figures easy on one conference. So, money to be had. Anyways, okay. So what was I wanted to break this down a little bit. What was I thinking? Oh, right. So think of like conference website, and this could be historic. Like this could be continual, right? Because oftentimes it's like, hey, here's my conference 2022, 2023, 2024, et cetera, et cetera. Conference website. And then just research profile. So research focus and profile. So research group. And then there's the big one. And this is much more difficult. And I've had some conversations with people within the academic space that do kind of this thing for a living in terms of communications and stuff like that. If you look at the entire institution, like Dalhousie University or University of Waterloo, I just say those two because that's where I've been. But just take any university. They have, when they get together as a big organization and they put forth different proposals to do certain types of work that has to do about communicating the work that they're doing, like whether it's within the community or how they're advancing science, across the country or across the globe. They want to be a global leader or what have you. Those are huge, huge contracts. And to get into that kind of space, I don't exactly know how to do it, but there's definitely a whole lot of potential there. And that's a whole lot of a longer sales cycle, I would imagine, to being able to tackle that kind of work. But I just want to put it down here now because there's potential there, but I need to talk to some other people and see if I can get other people on board to help out with that. And that's the other thing too that I want to start investigating. And I think this will be very interesting and hopefully very valuable to you guys is how can I grow a team or put together a team of people to help kind of expand the agency because scientific communication is, it can be pretty challenging. And there's lots that need to be done, and you have to be very, very careful about what you say and how you say it. Because these things, like anything that is research associated, gets wordsmithed to death by all the different people involved. And the thing too with professors and research, they, I don't know what the right word is. I don't say territorial, but they're very proud of the work that they do. And, I don't know. Let's see about that. They're good. They're good people. But yeah, they're very, so I don't want to speak too bad of people. It's just funny. We'll just leave it at that. So yeah, at the institutional level, and what could we say about that? That's tough because it's what would they be kind of looking for? I think at this point you're really looking more at like your community outreach. How showcasing their value, right? Why is it that they need to prove to the public, not so much prove, but they want to show the public that, the millions and millions of dollars that is being invested through various levels of government and donations as well, which is also a big thing, are there's a reason for it. There's value there, right? So universities are always really big on donations and donors, especially people that donate like millions of dollars, and they donate land, all kinds of different things. And because they always want to seem that they want to know that for rich people, giving them money is a good thing and it's not going to go to waste. So being able to help them with that, I think would be a really good thing. But again, that's over my level at this stage of the game. Not in terms of how to execute it, but how to actually get to the point where I can even have these conversations with institutions to do some type of really grand scale project to showcase the work that they do. But it'll be very interesting. I'm going to try to get it though. We're going to try to do something really cool with this, guys. I'm really excited. It's also, why did this take me 300 days to, 300 live streams to kind of figure about really narrowing down my niche, and then also sticking to the stuff that I know best right now. Anyways, better late than never, I guess. So, all right. And this is something that I think too, I'd like to validate in terms of what are the actual problems that we're going to be solving. Actually, can I undo that? I mean, I have my own, undo that. What is this? Medium. Go back to Medium. Okay. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be important to validate the problem that we're solving, because that's really going to this is really going to affect the marketing and how we're going to try to get people to understand who we are. Like, obviously, what's really good for me is that I have a really good network of people that I could target through like warm outreach through the University of Waterloo and Dalhousie University. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I have a lot of, it's just because I've been academics for a while, a lot of my friends and stuff, you know, their PhDs and stuff like that too. So, so that's a plus. But that being said, we're still going to have to do a lot of marketing, and it's probably going to be through LinkedIn, and being able to understand what problem we're solving is going to help us frame what kind of content to actually start writing. So I think the problem we're solving, so I want to think like really high level, like what's the crux of their issues. So I think, yeah, and I wanna try to be fair and not just want to speak to like what my strengths are. You know, the problem they're solving is that, oh, they never have anybody who's good to like build them a website. It's like, no, that's not the problem that they're having, because they just have money. They'll just throw money at a problem, right? So what is it that these research groups are trying to do? So if I think of the Ocean Frontier Institute, which I worked at and I still do work for them. So what are the big things that they're solving? So obviously they're solving research problems, like what's going on with the ocean, what's happening with the carbon in there, how's the carbon cycle working, how much more carbon can the ocean absorb, blah, 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 stuff with climate change, all that kind of stuff. That's what the questions that they're answering. But how does that relate to like getting funding and continuing to get funding? And I think what that problem is I think it's just being able to communicate the work that they do. So a lot of that, yeah, they need to be able to communicate the work that they do. And I guess that's why I think that would be the main reason why they would come out to a creative agency. So like, I'm just trying to think of when I was working in certain groups, at what point in time would we go out and say, hey, we need to hire somebody to do this? So one of the big things was when there's a specific project that would come up and saying, hey, we want to do this new project and we want to get the word out there. And a lot of times people were saying, especially when they want to try to, oh, here's a good one. Well, at least I think so. When they're trying to, like, yeah, Eisenhower, in fact, effective communication. So scientists are generally pretty bad at communicating the work that they're doing, not to other scientists, but to regular laymen. So yeah, like we'll just say here too that, like the general public, right? How do we engage the public? So yeah, they definitely need to do a better job at doing that. But I feel like that's not a core of their problem, in that a lot of the times that's not what's stopping them from getting funding or not, right? It's part of it, but it's not. It's like almost always like an afterthought of like, oh, now we got all this money to do all this research. You know, how the hell do we going to get? Let's get a website. You know, and then they end up getting some, co-op student that doesn't know anything to put up to make like a Wix site, and it's like, you got this $100 million project, and you spend $10 on like a website, and that's the main barrier of entry to like all the work you do to expose it to the world. It's like, so that's frustrating. Anyways, so what was I thinking about? Oh shoot, I was onto something. What was it? Talking about communication. Right. It's about like engaging, like when they have this project or whatever, and they want to make this project, like they want to get it off the ground, they need to get specific buy-ins from different stakeholders. And those are often, like political stakeholders, like the politicians. It's like, how do we get the politicians to care about something so that way the politicians are going to want to talk about it, like on the world stage, especially Canadian politicians, when they go off to all the COP events and all these other events, whether you agree with them or not, that's a whole other issue. But they go out, governments go out and they push their agendas and this and that. This is what we're doing. And then they back that up by funding that, right? So a lot of professors and especially research groups, they try to figure out, well, how do we let politicians know that, you know what, studying this thing, whatever the case may be, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's this environment stuff, whether it's stuff to do with wetlands and the carbon cycle, blah, 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 whatever the case may be, how do we let the politicians know that this is really, really important and that if you don't do anything, then, you know, the world's going to come to an end, whatever the case may be, right? So we've spent lots of money, working at various jobs to take a concept and idea and how to spin it in a way. It's really doing like a lot of communication, PR kind of stuff of creating like a campaign. It's almost like creating a campaign of, hey, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to think of what would have been a common campaign. Like a big one now is like net zero by 2050, right? You hear that all the time. It's like, well, we have to get to net zero, right? So it's just like you distill all the science into this like net zero campaign, and then you create materials, videos, websites, interactive websites or posters, flyers, whatever, all about net zero. And then you constantly bombard communications across all social media to get that message out there, and then to hope that it reaches the public or the politician's eye. So all of that being said, I think it's so one of the big problems is like illustrating the importance of the research to make decision makers / because it's also the policymakers, but it's also the politicians that write the checks in a sense, which is our checks. This is all public money, by the way. Illustrating the importance of their research. Problem solving. So illustrate the importance of the researchers not to make decisions, to decision makers and or politicians to help, advance their, I'm just going to say agenda. It's kind of sounds like nefarious, but they all have their agenda and their cause in a sense of this is the science that we want to do. This is important. We need to kind of pursue this and understand this more. And again, relating it all to the greater good of what this is going to do for society. And in brackets, get funding. So I think those are the big problems. Is there anything else? Communication. It's almost all around communication. And being able to distill complex scientific principles in plain English. So another potential problem, well, I guess this depends on audience. Let me go back to audience here for a second and think of a potentially fourth audience would be a new company that's based on brand new technology or scientific research. And it could be pretty complex, right? So imagine some biologist comes up with this whole new way to, I don't know, whatever, do something with genetic like gene therapy or whatever, and it's new technology, right? So some researcher, some PhD student or whatever, PhD professor, they come up with this new technology and they want to patent it, trademark it, whatever the case they may do, have some IP around it. And then they're like, this is a business because now I have this technology and I could actually apply it to new things, right? To new products. So they're like, I'm going to go ahead and build this new company and I'm going to build a product based on this technology. And so that company, of course, is probably coming in with funding if they have some kind of funding or whatever the case may be. And they're like, we need to create, it's a brand new technology, right? So it's like stuff people have never seen before. So you need to create a new website or content to make the average person understand what this new technology can do for them, right? So it's really like on the cutting edge of like science and technology and being able to explain the benefit, because you don't know, like what is it that you don't know what you don't know, in a sense, where this new technology, like what can it do for me? Like what's the big deal here? It's almost like, being like the Steve Jobs type of person in the sense that, hey, he's going out there and he's unveiling this new iPhone. It's like this whole new way of doing things, right? With like the touch screen and whatever. And it's like, you didn't realize, you didn't know this stuff. It's this new technology. This is how you can do that. So to communicate like that effectively, of course, mixed in with an actual absolute killer of a product helps. But it's that kind of stuff, right? To be able to do to these companies that kind of spin off based on new technology and research, which is really, really cool. So again, that problem we're solving, I don't know exactly how to say this. How could I say this? It's like, it's almost like creative services for like tech-driven, like science on the frontier. That doesn't make any sense in terms of putting that as like a problem statement. So I guess what in their minds is, I guess it's the same thing, right? It's just explain. The problem is, okay, what is wrong? The people do not understand how new scientific research / technology can benefit their lives, or like benefit society as a whole. Right? It's like, hey, we developed this new technology which will allow us to reduce emissions or reduce the amount of time it takes for cargo to get transported from A to B and all this kind of stuff. And that's 15% efficiency in time, which means we're going to use this much less fuel across all of the globe, which is going to, all this kind of stuff. Like you got to be able to communicate that kind of stuff. So it's really all about communication, obviously. Yeah. So for example, a guy or an organization, they have only one chance to speak to a potential client, or let's say investors. But that guy has only 5 seconds to pitch his service or products. Yeah. So that's actually really important, where a lot of people, they lose out on pitches, not because they have a bad idea or because they have a bad product, but it's because they don't effectively know how to get their point across clearly and effectively. So a lot of, I've talked to a few people that do they do venture funds. They actually are the people that choose like a big venture firm or whatever, who's going to get funding or not. And it's more often than not based on the idea, but it's based on the people and how well that they believe that person can execute. And a part of that is confidence, and a part of that is understanding how to pitch your stuff and have pitch materials and whatever too, which certainly helps. But so that could be another angle as well too, in terms of helping people build out their pitch decks. So and another comment here. And your service is to give a communication skills or words to make that 5 seconds worth it. So I would say what I would do. So in terms of helping people pitch to investors, I think that's another separate niche that right now I'm not comfortable in pursuing. My niche is definitely going to be not necessarily how you communicate to an individual person, like if you're in the elevator or you need to do a pitch, but it's how do you communicate to your stakeholders and to the public about how your research is benefiting people and like how they're spending taxpayers' dollars and what benefit the taxpayer is getting from that research. And it's more of a long game, right? So there's going to be lots of different things. So that could be making videos and creating videos to explain what it is that they do and to push out what they do to the world so people can understand the benefits. It's creating engaging websites as well, which tells people what they do and have a place where people can interact with the work, where people can, they can have their news publications and their updates on all the research that they're doing, have a medium to communicate that. And then you're thinking about, what else I think of? Data management. That's a big thing as well too. These research groups, they're going out there, they're collecting so much data. Like again, like some of these large research groups and these big organizations, at the end of the day, they'll have like a couple hundred people end up getting like their master's degree or PhDs out of all of this research. And each one of them are collecting a whole bunch of data. Where is all that data going to live? How's it going to be organized and disseminated? A lot of the times they're just going on their separate ways. So if we can consolidate that and provide services to help them manage all that data and to be able to make it available to the public or to make it available to other people in a format that makes sense. Like there's all kinds of those different avenues of more of a long-term game of communication. So that's, I think, where that hits my skill set and that hits the things that I'm looking to do, but not so much of, hey, I'm going to help you pitch to make money. But it's something that's important, and I would love nothing more than to be able to say, hey, you come to this organization and we'll help you, 100% increase your chances of getting funding or whatever the case may be. That would be amazing to be able to use as a promotional tool. But we're not there yet, and I'm certainly not going to just lie or make up any kind of false numbers in terms of how much we can increase the chances of people getting funding. But what I do want to be able to say is that we can increase how much more you're able to communicate the work that you do and how much more eyeballs that you do have. So I can think of like a case study of saying, hey, well, we did this video for this organization, we did this website or whatever, and then they end up getting, 200% more engagement and blah, blah, blah. We can showcase kind of those numbers as like case studies. So, So another problem that we could solve, at least in terms of that, is you could I want to say prepare like a pitch deck, but even that's not my area of expertise. Like building up an actual pitch deck. Like I could design it for sure, but you'd have to give me the content, and for me to put that together, I don't think that's something, at least for me, that I would be comfortable putting on as a service at this stage of the game. Because there's different types of things. There's pitch decks for companies looking for investments, and it's completely different than for like a research group and how they are going to go out looking for fundings, because they don't pitch per se. It's like they write this like 100-page, 150-page, whatever proposal to the government, and then the government decides. So it's not like a Dragon's Den style pitch, because we're talking about, 8-9 figure projects and proposals. So, it's not as like a simple pitch deck. But that being said, we could say something. I want to say like helping them like prepare in terms of like making it look nice or whatever. So, would an organization be willing to pay $15,000 to a company to, like really polish and put a shine on their proposal? Maybe. So I want to say, yeah. Do you want to say anything about proposals? Like, what could we say about proposals? Talk about facilitating the writing of the proposals, because again, like the professors themselves, they're the ones that work on proposals generally. And they collaborate together through whatever tools that they kind of use internally already. So I don't think there's much help we can do there from an agency perspective. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna need to talk. Might need to talk to a few other people on this. I'll just leave that as a question mark for now. I'll just say, you know, can we help them improve their chances of success? And the question too is like, why do some groups fail when they create specific proposals for NSERC or government or whatever the case may be? Okay. Yeah. I think what would be really nice to do would be to talk to a few people. If I can talk to maybe some professors and maybe get a little bit of a sense for the things that they might be thinking, things that I haven't thought of what they might be looking for like a creative agency. Or maybe I don't want to think that I'm overthinking things a little bit too much. But they could offer some insights into things that I haven't thought of. So here's another thing about a problem that we are solving, which I haven't articulated yet, but I think it can be a big problem, this relates to events and, again, managing all the information that happens after an event. So the problem we're solving is lack of engagement before, during, and after an event. So, you know, don't have good pictures of the event. Don't have any video. No, like in terms of the engagement before, like getting people hyped up, whether it's using social media, you know, and if we could manage all of that for them, that would be amazing, right? Getting people excited about what's going to happen. Of course, there's all the creating the materials and as well for that. That's a whole nother thing. So I think that's a problem. So how can we even phrase that? I guess this is maybe more putting on the marketing hat, which maybe we'll get into a little bit later on as we're writing the content. But if we think about the problem, it's like, what does that person want to read? You know, I guess even just something like that is like, are you, you know, run events that your customers or whatever, like run events that your customers cannot stop talking about, you know, things like that. I think help speak to that problem. The other thing too is, do people sometimes even see this as a problem? I mean, I see, we run these events, these big, huge, massive events, and then they're done. And then it's like, that's it, right? I think there needs to be more follow-up, more reviews, just more engagement after the fact. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What worked? What didn't work? What would you like to see next year? How can we make it better? And then for people that want to get information from, hey, I didn't see that presentation. I'd like to see that again. And to have all that kind of stuff available would be really, really cool. So that problem is, that whole lack of engagement. Yeah, we can definitely solve that by lots of different ways. Okay. So we have our audience, and we have the idea of the problem that we are solving. Again, I don't think we need to crack the case and get this 100% right now, and this is it for all of time. But I think we have a really good idea to start crafting the content that we're going to want to have on our landing page. And again, we need to completely change this. In fact, this is going to completely change. This is way too standard, way too generic. We're going to do something different. So one last thing that I want to get everyone's your opinion on. So I've actually thought of, I definitely want to have a new name for this company or for this direction. Because there's two different things that I want to do here. So new name for whatever Science Co. We're just going to call it. So I have two different names that I thought of that I really like, and I don't know which one is going to make the most sense. So the one name is, let's just say and/or. So there's Kelvin and Beaker. So what I was looking for is I'm looking for names that are highly recognizable in the science space that you're going to hear, and they're immediately going to be like, oh yeah, I kind of understand that reference. So it's either Kelvin Studios or Beaker Studios, whatever the case may be. But those are two names that I've tested so many different names now that I really kind of like. So I'd love to know, just leave me a comment on what you think is the best name for this. And of course I need to figure out, if I can even use these as names or whatever, or there's different ways that I need to, Beaker, Science Incorporated or whatever, something like that, right? But just to say hey, we're, Kelvin Studios or Beaker or whatever. So I kind of like those. So let me know what you think. And then we'll go from there. I can tell you, I know, my wife is leaning towards Beaker. She likes Beaker. I like it too. But Kelvin, I'm thinking Kelvin is just, a measurement of temperature. And I think of temperature, I also think of the different color spectrums that can go along with that as well too. From red, hot, all the way to blue. Get the whole gamut of color. And I almost think a little bit of, what's that thing in the Pink Floyd album cover where the light shines in through the prism and then you get the rainbow or whatever. So something like that in terms of Kelvin, and it's just got the colors, and of course it's all about the creative services that we can do. And Beaker is just really cool because Beaker is just a super common, awesome thing that you do you use in science, especially chemistry or biology or whatever the case. It's just it's a beaker. Everyone knows what a beaker is. Well, not everyone, but the target audience knows what it is, right? So anyways, so I just want to talk just here quickly before I end about kind of the path forward. So there's a couple things that I want to do. So number one, Pixel Media, which is our creative services agency, is going to say not so much a pivot, but more of a focus on the science industry, and serve academic academic institutions. Academic institutions and like emerging technical companies. But again, really more the latter. So that's number one. And then so Pixel will transition into an educational space focused on teaching people how to, sorry, I'm speaking as I'm typing, which will focus people on how to go from 0 to 100,000. It doesn't even have to be that much revenue per year as a freelance web designer. And from there, so, you know, we'll provide, well, I don't, yeah. So like the education is free in a sense, but Pixel will sell products, and then we'll have obviously like Pixel pieces and anything else that we might end up having down the line. So that's a little bit of a switch from Pixel. So Pixel, we have Pixel pieces now, which is really fantastic. But we're going to transition that whole thing to be this whole educational piece about how to build websites. So we're going to have that, and that's going to be its own thing. All the YouTube videos and stuff that I'm currently filming and all that stuff, that's going to go there and live there. And then this whole Pixel, we're going to call it something completely different to separate these things out, and where it's going to be Beaker, it's going to be Kelvin, and that's going to be the framework or the umbrella for working with clients and the clients of academic institutions. So those are the two different kind of ways I'm kind of splitting these things off into their own things. And then of course there's the third thing, which is this, the unconventional mindset, which is just kind of like the live stream about everything that I'm doing, which is kind of its own thing, but we're not going to worry about that today. Okay, so yeah, that's all that I wanted to go over today. So I think I like this. I'm kind of happy with thinking about the target audience and the problem is that we're going to be solving for them. So with that, I think we're going to start writing some preliminary content and laying out what kind of pages that we're going to want on our new website. And we'll start laying down the foundations for those tomorrow. So that's what we'll do. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining. Kevin, much appreciate you joining as always. And Eisenhower, thank you for joining. And I think it's the first time I've seen you here, at least commenting. So pleasure to have you here, and hope to see you again next time. Thank you again for joining. And as always, we'll be back here for a brand new live stream tomorrow. Until then, take it easy and have a great night.